They promised innovation, they delivered frustration. From frozen desktops to lawsuits and lost dreams, these are the operating systems that crashed harder than their users' patience. 8 disasters in code, each one a reminder that progress sometimes needs a reboot. Windows Longhorn. There was a time between the glory of XP and the chaos of Vista when Microsoft whispered a single word that would change everything: Longhorn. They promised glassy transparency, instant search, 3D graphics that felt alive. This was supposed to be the future your PC, reimagined. But what we got was a Frankenstein of ambition and bugs. Longhorn was the tech world's equivalent of Icarus. It flew too close to the sun on glossy aero wings and melted mid-flight. Every week, new builds leaked online, each one more unstable than the last. Boot it up, and you'd be lucky if the desktop appeared before the crash report. Developers called it Vista's haunted prototype. Fans called it Windows XP with delusions of grandeur. It had dreams, but no discipline. By 2005, Microsoft hit the panic button and scrapped the whole thing. What rose from its ashes became Windows Vista, which, as we'll see later, wasn't exactly redemption. Longhorn wasn't just a failure, it was a warning that even the giants can dream too big for their own code. Windows ME. The year 2000, when everyone thought computers were going to explode from the Y2K bug. Microsoft's answer to the new millennium? Windows ME. Officially, it stood for Millennium Edition. But for anyone who actually used it, it meant massive error. The operating system that crashed before you even had time to hit save. It was supposed to be the fun, family-friendly upgrade to Windows 98, a bridge to the future. Instead, it was a bridge to frustration. Programs froze mid-launch, drivers disappeared overnight, and the blue screen of death became a daily ritual. It was like Microsoft stuffed every possible bug into one shiny box and said, good luck. Sure, it added Internet Explorer 5.5 and the first version of Windows Movie Maker, but what's the point of editing videos if the system crashes before you can render? Within a year, users fled back to Windows 98 or waited for XP, which felt like salvation. Windows ME wasn't just bad software, it was a public meltdown, a cautionary tale of what happens when you ship a patch and call it a revolution. MS-DOS 4. Before Windows, before GUIs, before the mouse became king, there was DOS. Simple, reliable, until version 4 showed up like a drunk uncle at a family reunion. MS-DOS 4 was supposed to be the next step in computing more powerful, more efficient. Instead, it crashed so often that users joked it stood for mostly stops doesn't operate successfully. It froze. It corrupted files. It even refused to talk to some hardware that worked perfectly fine in older versions. Imagine upgrading your car only to find out it can't drive uphill anymore. That was DOS 4. Sure, it introduced a few neat ideas, a rudimentary graphical interface, mouse support if you had the right driver, even some color options, but none of it mattered when your system locked up just trying to copy a file. For many, it marked the first time people realized an update could make things worse. When DOS 5 arrived and finally fixed the mess, users cheered like prisoners being released. MS-DOS 4 was left behind a relic of instability, buried under its own bugs. The Incompatible Timesharing system. Long before Windows, before Apple, before anyone cared about user-friendly, there was the Incompatible Timesharing System, or ITS. Built in the late 1960s at MIT by some of the brightest hackers of their time, it was a masterpiece of chaos. The name said it all, incompatible. It only ran on a few massive computers the size of refrigerators, and it didn't play nice with anything else. Forget your fancy folders. This system gave every user a single directory. No subfolders, no organization. Just dump everything in the same digital closet and hope you can find it later. Passwords? None. Anyone could log into anyone's account and edit their files. In a weird way, it ran on mutual respect and academic politeness, a digital Wild West where vandalism was rare because everyone knew who the sheriff was. Still, ITS was a beautiful disaster, a system that captured the curiosity of its creators but broke every rule of security and order. It wasn't just incompatible with other computers, it was incompatible with sanity itself. Java OS. In the mid-90s, Sun Microsystems had a dream to make an operating system that could run anywhere, on anything. That dream became Java OS. Built entirely in the Java language, it was supposed to be small, fast, and universal. From ATMs to pages to early net computers, this was the system that promised to connect the world. But in reality, it connected nothing. Java OS crawled instead of sprinted. Its code, written in Java rather than C, made it painfully slow even by 90-second standards. It was like trying to run a marathon wearing cement shoes. Companies licensed it, hyped it, and then quietly pretended it didn't exist. Even Sun's own Java Station computers, the one device that actually used it, gathered dust in labs and closets. By 1999, Java OS was discontinued, remembered only by developers who had to explain why their Run Anywhere software refused to run anywhere at all. In hindsight, it was a bold experiment born ahead of its time, but also proved that dreams of universal software can crash just as hard as buggy code. Java OS didn't fail because it was broken. It failed because the world wasn't ready for it, and maybe it wasn't ready for the world. Windows Vista. Windows Vista was supposed to be the next great leap: sleek design, futuristic glass windows, and a brand new heart beating underneath it all. It looked like the future. It felt like the future, until you actually tried to use it. Vista demanded power, like a diva demanding spotlight. The moment you installed it on your old XP machine, your computer wheezed like it was climbing Everest. It was stunning and stunningly slow. The new Aero interface devoured your RAM. Drivers didn't work, printers refused to print, keyboards ghosted mid-sentence, and then there was the infamous user account control popping up every time you tried to breathe, asking, "Are you sure?" People didn't upgrade, they escaped. Some even went back to XP just to feel safe again. To be fair, later service packs fixed much of it, but by then, Vista's reputation was already sealed in tech history, the operating system that tried too hard to be modern and ended up aging overnight. It wasn't evil, just over-engineered, misunderstood, and crushed under the weight of its own ambition. A beautiful failure, like a luxury car that looks gorgeous in the showroom but stalls at every red light. Windows 8. Windows 8 was the moment Microsoft forgot who its audience was. In an age where tablets and smartphones were rising fast, they tried to merge it all one interface to rule them all. The result? A system that felt like it didn't know what it wanted to be. Gone was the beloved Start button, replaced by a giant, tile-covered touchscreen layout that looked more like a toy store display than an operating system. Users booted it up and froze, staring at colorful squares asking, "Where's my desktop?" Simple actions like closing a window turned into puzzles. There were gestures nobody knew existed, settings buried under layers of confusion, and the infamous charms bar that appeared only when you moved your mouse just right. It was an OS that punished you for not being psychic. To their credit, Windows 8 introduced faster boot times, better security, and a modern design language. But none of that mattered when people couldn't even figure out how to shut down their computers. Windows 8 wasn't just a failure of design, it was a failure of empathy. A system made for touchscreens in a world still running on keyboards. Lindows. Back in 2001, a group of developers had a bold idea. Take Linux, dress it up to look like Windows, and sell it to the masses. They called it Lindows. The goal was simple: make Linux easy enough for anyone to use while secretly giving Microsoft a headache. The problem? It barely worked. Lindows promised that you could run Windows applications on Linux using a built-in compatibility layer called Wine. In theory, that meant freedom. In practice, it meant crashes, bugs, and the sad realization that your favorite programs still didn't run. Then came the legal storm. Microsoft sued, claiming the name was too close to Windows. The case made headlines and unbelievably, Lindows won. But victory didn't save them. Microsoft eventually paid $20 million just to buy the name, and Lindows quietly rebranded to Linspire. Despite a few clever ideas, the dream fizzled. It was too slow for Linux fans and too weird for Windows users. Lindows became the punchline of tech history, proof that you can't copy greatness with duct tape and wishful thinking. It didn't just blur the line between Linux and Windows. It tripped over it, sued someone, and disappeared into obscurity. Every crash, every failure, every fatal error in this list built the systems we use today. Because the truth is, progress doesn't come from perfection. It comes from the bugs, the glitches, and the courage to start again. So, the next time your computer freezes, just remember, at least it's not running Lindows.